Hello, amazing people. Welcome back. It is time for another Hot Lap. Buckle up, get your helmet, and let's go for a ride. I did say in episode 14 that I would be back the following week. It has now been 3 weeks. We missed part 2 and 3 of the Formula 1 triple header, so we're going to go ahead and go over those, as well as the Hungarian Grand Prix. We've got Austria to talk about, we have the British Grand Prix, we have the Hungarian Grand Prix, and boy, has the season changed a lot since those events took place. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and hop straight into this all Formula 1 episode. Let's get caught up with each other. I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, as I just went back and tried to re-listen to what I had previously recorded, it all ended up getting deleted. So, we are going to go ahead and go through it again, starting with our Formula 1 news, and then moving into the 3 Grand Prix that were missed. Audi, for the 2026 Formula 1 season, have decided to move on with Mattia Binotto, former Ferrari team principal. What his role in the Audi camp will be is most likely going to be a chief engineer or a team principal, as it was at Ferrari. I don't really see him being a huge factor in any other sort of developmental ways, the way that an Adrian Newey would be. I definitely do see him being kind of a face, a representative of the Audi team, rather than something more. Moving into the races. As I said previously, we have 3 races to go over that have been missed due to my laziness. First, we have round 2 of the Formula 1 season. Round 2 of the Formula 1... not the Formula 1 season. Round 2 of the triple header. My apologies. It brought us in to Austria for a sprint weekend. The sprint grid was as follows: Max Verstappen, followed by Lando Norris, who was then followed himself by Oscar Piastri, George Russell, Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Sergio Perez, Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, and Charles Leclerc rounded out the top 10 for the grid on the sprint race, with those standing on the podium by the end of the race being Max Verstappen in first place, Oscar Piastri in second place, jumping ahead of his teammate Lando Norris in third. Qualifying brought us a less than mixed up grid, with Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, George Russell starting in the top 3. Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Sergio Perez, Nico Hülkenberg, and Esteban Ocon rounded out the rest of the top 10 for the Austrian Grand Prix. By the end of the race, after some very, very close racing between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, eventually causing them to come together, Lando to DNF, Max Verstappen with a puncture having to box in the very last lap of the race. George Russell is the man standing on the top step of the podium, followed by Lando Norris' teammate Oscar Piastri in the other number 81 McLaren Papaya car. Carlos Sainz followed on the bottom step of the podium, with 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton finishing in front of his previous rival, 3-time champion Max Verstappen. Nico Hülkenberg picked up some good points for the Haas F1 team in 6th place, with Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen also picking up points, Daniel Ricciardo, and Pierre Gasly rounding out the top 10. Moving into the next race weekend, we have the British Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton did end up winning the race. The way that the grid lined up was with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton making it an all-Mercedes front row, with Lando Norris qualifying behind them, making it a top 3 British grid. The Flying Dutchman of Max Verstappen started behind them, as well as the upside-down driver of Oscar Piastri. Nico Hülkenberg had a good qualifying session, qualifying in 6th place ahead of the Ferrari and Carlos Sainz. Lance Stroll, Alex Albon, and Fernando Alonso round out the top 10 for the grid. As I said, after some good battling and some unfortunate wet weather issues for George Russell, whose car could not handle the water on the road, and he was forced to DNF, Lewis Hamilton wins his home race, the British Grand Prix, followed by previous rival Max Verstappen. Lando Norris rounds out the podium positions with his teammate Oscar Piastri finishing in 4th place. Carlos Sainz, Nico Hülkenberg, Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso, Alex Albon, and Yuki Tsunoda round out the top 10 for the British Grand Prix. Moving into the most recent Grand Prix, we have the Hungarian Grand Prix. The grid wound up with the Papaya McLarens of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri locking out the front row from Max Verstappen, chasing his 4th World Championship and leading the table right now. Carlos Sainz starts behind him, giving Ferrari a actual decent start for the first time in a little bit, with his teammate Charles Leclerc in 6th place. Lewis Hamilton sandwiched between the two of them. Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Daniel Ricciardo, and Yuki Tsunoda, the Aston Martins and Racing Bulls, round out the top 10, with Nico Hülkenberg just missing out on the top 10 shootout in 11th. Very solid, consistent results we are seeing from the Haas team and Nico Hülkenberg. Some very unfortunate series of team orders happened this race. McLaren had quite the embarrassing race, not on pace, but on team radio, and having a clearly favorited driver for the race. That time, this race, it was Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris was boxed first, which everybody kind of understood that he would end up undercutting Oscar Piastri. When this happened, McLaren kind of told Lando basically to back off and let Oscar Piastri through. Oscar, after his stop, came out behind Lando Norris, which was projected to happen. But it was clear that McLaren didn't want it to happen, so the reason that they pitted Norris ahead of Piastri was quite shocking once we found out the order that they actually preferred. Lando Norris was much faster than Oscar Piastri too after the pit stops, and kind of increased the gap back to Piastri quite a bit, who was then dealing with Lewis Hamilton behind him. So the issue with the driver swap was that Lando Norris was much faster than Piastri after the second set of pit stops happened, and Piastri was getting put under pressure from Hamilton. So if Piastri had caught up to Norris, it would have been no issue to let him by because he was a faster driver. But Lando Norris's questioning to his team was because he was faster, so he wasn't going to go back and potentially compromise the 1-2 for McLaren by letting Oscar through, because then it puts him super close to Lewis Hamilton, who he could then become under pressure from and fall even further down the order. It just wasn't worth risking the race. By the end of the race, Lando Norris did swap with Oscar Piastri after having almost threats come at him from the garage, saying how they need the team and he needs Oscar if he's going to fight for other positions throughout the season, and that there's more races where it would be more valuable for Lando to win. But personally, I am not a huge fan of this and don't really agree with it. David Coulthard, who is one of the announcers for the Formula One TV, was also a race car driver, and he was put in the same situation back when he was racing. After DC had won his first race, he was asked to swap positions in a similar fashion to Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, himself being in Lando Norris's shoes. And he was basically told that if he wouldn't do it, then he would lose his position driving, and that he had his career threatened almost. So it seemed as though there was no other choice for him. He said if he went back in time, he wishes that he wouldn't have given up the position now and would have taken it for himself. Because when you're in the car, yes, you need your teammates when you're further down the order and it's a swap to put pressure on the rest of the field. But when you have cars finishing first and second, it's not right to have them swap just because you want one driver to take the points over another. That was his reasoning, and if he went back in time, he absolutely would not have swapped. So, take it with a grain of salt, but it definitely doesn't feel right that is what McLaren ended up doing. But it's what they did. And ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for you guys for this Formula One only episode. Look out for a bonus episode, possibly a Thursday or Friday, getting posted to catch us up in NASCAR. And then next Tuesday, we will be back on our normal, longer form content. This was just a little short episode to get y'all caught up in the world of Formula One, as well as have myself kind of reflect back and look at the season that we've had so far. So we've got exciting things coming, and I cannot wait to talk about it with you guys. Let's see how this develops. Until next time, you guys already know the drill. But if you need a reminder, until next time, don't forget to brake late and accelerate early. Ladies and gentlemen, I was just listening back to the episode. I just want to say sorry that it got a little bit quiet. I am working on getting that fixed so we can be better for the NASCAR episode. We will see you guys then.